She walked onto the set, full of hope, only to be fired in front of everyone. But what the director didn't know was that this rejection would set in motion a chain of events that would shock Hollywood. The afternoon sun spilled through the tall glass windows of the studio, bathing the set in a soft golden hue. Dust particles floated lazily in the light, shimmering like forgotten dreams. The air was alive with noise, clattering equipment, hurried footsteps, and the sharp call of "quiet on set" echoing across the floor. Assistants darted back and forth, clutching clipboards and coffee cups, while camera operators adjusted their lenses with mechanical precision. In the center of this controlled chaos stood Amara Lewis. Late 20s, poised, her dark skin glowing beneath the stage lights. She wore a costume that spoke of quiet strength, a flowing cream blouse, and a skirt that brushed the floor, elegant but humble. Her eyes carried stories, deep and steady, as if they'd seen too much and still refused to dim. She inhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. Every breath, every heartbeat, was another chance to prove herself in a world that measured worth in appearances. Around her, the industry buzzed, beautiful, ruthless, and endlessly hungry. A world where dreams were bought, sold, and often stolen. And somewhere in that bright, glittering maze, Amara was still trying to hold on to the one thing she refused to trade, her dignity. The camera rolled, and Amara stepped into her scene as if the world had disappeared. Her voice trembled with restrained emotion, her eyes shimmered with quiet pain. Every gesture, every pause felt alive, raw, human, real. When she finished her line, the air seemed to hold its breath. A few members of the crew exchanged glances, silently impressed. Someone even smiled, mouthing a quiet, "Beautiful." But before that fragile moment could bloom, a sharp voice shattered it. "Cut!" Victor Harlan rose from his director's chair, irritation flickering across his face like static. "Too emotional," he snapped. "You're not the right fit for this role." His tone wasn't just critical, it was dismissive, laced with something colder, something unspoken. The room froze. Cameras stopped whirring. The clatter of equipment faded into a heavy silence. Amara blinked, confusion clouding her calm composure. I can do it again," she began softly. But he didn't look at her, didn't care to. Within minutes, a production assistant approached her, eyes lowered, voice apologetic. "I'm sorry. Mr. Harlan said you're done for today." The words landed like a blade. Fired. No explanation, no defense, just erased. As if her talent had never existed at all. The studio gates closed behind her with a hollow clang, echoing louder than any applause she'd ever received. The afternoon sun blazed overhead, once golden, now merciless. It pressed against her skin, hot and heavy, as if the whole world was watching her fall. Amara kept walking, head high, though her chest felt like it was collapsing inward. Days blurred into weeks. Her phone stayed silent. Casting agencies that once called her promising suddenly forgot her name. Rejection letters piled up like fallen leaves on her kitchen table. Rent notices slipped under her door, their red ink shouting what no one else dared to say. "You've failed." But Amara didn't break. She folded her pain into purpose. Nights found her in a quiet public library, surrounded by stacks of books, film theory, storytelling, business. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, but her mind was alive. By day, she took any job she could, waitressing, teaching acting to kids, even sweeping theatre floors after shows. Every tip, every dollar, went into a jar labelled Future. And one evening, with trembling hands, she bought her first camera. Small, second-hand. But when she held it, she felt something spark again. Not fame, not revenge, freedom. Years drifted by, quietly shaping her into something stronger. Amara no longer stood in front of the camera, she stood behind it. With her small, battered camera and a heart full of untold stories, she began to create. Her first short film was shot in borrowed spaces, using friends as actors and natural light as her only spotlight. But the story, raw, honest, filled with dignity, struck something deep in everyone who watched it. When her name was called at a small local film festival, she stood frozen for a moment, unsure if she'd heard right. The applause was modest, but to Amara it sounded like thunder. For the first time in years, she felt seen, not as an actress to be judged, but as an artist with a voice. Word spread quietly, like a whisper carried by wind. People began to notice her vision, the way her lens captured humanity's quiet struggles and small triumphs. With every project, her confidence grew. She founded Luma Soul Studios, built not from wealth, but from purpose. And when she began hiring, she chose differently. Young, overlooked talents, people who had once been told no. Under her guidance, their no's slowly turned into new beginnings. The email arrived on an ordinary morning. Subject line, partnership opportunity. Amara almost ignored it until she saw the sender. The name of the same studio that had once erased her with a single word. Fired. She read the message twice. Their biggest project was in trouble. Budget overruns, creative collapse, chaos behind the scenes. They needed a fresh vision, someone to save them. And the board had voted Amara Lewis, executive producer. Days later, she walked through the studio gates once more, but everything felt different. The same sunlight fell across the pavement, yet now it seemed to glow for her. Security guards straightened as she passed, greeting her with a respectful, "Good afternoon, Miss Lewis." Her team followed behind, confident, inspired, loyal. They weren't outsiders anymore. Inside the boardroom, she saw him, Victor Harlan. The once invincible director sat at the far end of the table, his posture stiff, his eyes uncertain. Recognition flickered, followed by disbelief. Amara paused, letting silence speak first. Then she smiled, calm, graceful, unshaken. "You once told me I wasn't the right fit," she said softly, a beat of stillness. "Turns out," she continued, her voice like quiet thunder, "I was just meant to own the place." Victor sat rigidly across the table, his hands clasped tightly as if bracing for an execution. He expected anger, the kind he had once thrown so freely. He expected her to humiliate him, to mirror the cruelty he had shown years ago. But Amara didn't come to settle scores. She came to build something greater. She opened the folder before her, the papers crisp and clean. "This is the new contract," she said, her tone calm, almost gentle. "Fair pay, creative freedom, and equal credit for every contributor, including you." For a moment, Victor didn't speak. His eyes flicked to hers, searching for mockery, but found only grace. The silence in the room thickened. Producers, assistants, executives all watching, sensing the quiet shift of power. This was no longer his kingdom. The room, the company, the respect, it all revolved around her. Amara leaned back slightly, her presence commanding without a trace of arrogance. "This isn't about revenge," she said softly. "It's about doing what's right." Victor's throat tightened. He nodded, unable to meet her gaze. And in that stillness, everyone realized true strength wasn't loud or cruel. It was steady, merciful, and undeniably hers. Under Amara's leadership, the studio transformed into something far greater than a business. It became a movement. The once sterile halls now buzzed with new voices, fresh ideas, and faces that the industry had long ignored. Young filmmakers, writers, and actors from every background found a place at Luma Soul Studios. They came with hope in their eyes and left with stories that could move the world. Amara walked those same corridors each morning, greeting everyone by name. Her films, honest, soulful, unflinching, began to ripple across continents. Audiences didn't just watch them, they felt them. They saw themselves reflected in her stories, and for many, it was the first time they ever had. Awards followed, though she never chased them. What she valued most was the impact, the quiet letters from strangers saying her work gave them courage to begin again. One evening, standing in the golden light of her office, she looked out over the city that once turned its back on her. A soft smile crossed her face as the narrator's voice faded in. Sometimes, being rejected isn't the end. It's the redirection toward your true purpose, because power earned through grace lasts longer than power taken through fear. Injustice can break you or build you. The choice is yours. Greatness isn't about taking revenge, but rising above it with vision and grace.